Шановні гості, колеги.
Dear guests, dear fellow journalists, we can start. Starting from the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation has been working together with the international organizations on assistance to the survivors, and we present today an online platform having accumulated all the key services to the survivors of the war. This platform was developed in close cooperation with the international partners, and the key objective of creating this online platform is ensuring the support to Ukrainians all over Ukraine and beyond. So we will have a presentation of the platform today, and counteracting crimes of war will be the topic today, presented by the Deputy Prime Minister Olga Stefanishyna, Ulyana Tokareva, Deputy Minister of Social Policy of Ukraine, Kateryna Pavlichenko, Deputy Minister of Interior of Ukraine, Iryna Mykychak, Deputy Minister for Healthcare of Ukraine, Mustafa Elkanzi, Senior Coordinator for Emergency Situations, and Deputy Head of UNFPA in Ukraine. Our event will first provide the floor to the panel of the press briefing, and then the media can ask questions, and then you can communicate one-to-one and provide comments. And the floor is given to Olga Stefanishyna, First Vice Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic integration, who will present the platform and tell us about the future development plans. Hello, dear participants. I would like to start a little bit from the background for the citizens of Ukraine to understand the story behind this platform, behind the presentation we are conducting today. And it has been over a year when Ukraine is standing strong against the full-scale invasion of the Russian Federation, and the challenges we're facing are first and foremost related to mass killings of the civilians, and a lot of citizens of Ukraine perished or have suffered or have been tortured by the Russian army, in particular in the territories that have been occupied by the Russian Federation. And today we can confirm 68,000 registered crimes of war that are being investigated by the Ukrainian law enforcement, and a couple of hundreds of sexual violence cases, physical cases against women and men and children. And we should be aware that this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I have communicated multiple times to the colleagues from the UN, sexual crimes and physical crimes are the cheapest discouraging or demoralizing factor to impact the civilians, and people tend to omit them and keep them out of the discussion and not appeal to the investigative bodies. However, the survivors must be aware that the state takes good care of them and provides psychological support and other types of support to all the survivors, and we guarantee their return to the normal life as much as it is possible in the conditions of ongoing war. And together with the international partners, summing up the sad international experience of supporting the civilian population at the time of war, we are helping all the citizens of Ukraine having suffered, any citizen having suffered in any form, physically or morally, from the warfare. And we have already mentioned that within Ukraine, the citizens of Ukraine were internally displaced, they were escaping occupation, and we have opened up 5 centers for the survivors, providing complex and integrated support to them, and also information for the people in need. And in particular, it's in Kyiv, Zaporizhia, Dnipro, Lviv, and Chernivtsi. We're opening 5 more centers within 2 months, and also those centers are interacting with the mobile teams, working with the Ministry of Interior and the Ministry of Social Policy, encompassing in particular the entire territory of Ukraine. And of course, when we are talking about the centers in 5 cities of Ukraine, we should be aware that this capacity is not enough given the quantity of survivors, and we decided to create an online platform that would provide information on accessible services 24/7, and also services beyond the law enforcement system, being aware that a lot of cases related to violence and the atrocities on occupied territories often do not result in the applications to investigative bodies. So having created this platform, we were aware that this is a single window for all the addresses and contact details of all the services for psychological, social, and legal assistance. All the services are confidential and safe and free of charge. Any citizen of Ukraine can make use of them, and be sure that the information will be anonymized and not provided to third parties. Of course, this list is not exclusive. We call on all the initiatives who can join this platform, and we often speak about the involvement of our volunteers and civil society organizations, having the expertise since 2014, and we involve them in this process. It's also important for us that the platform can be used not just by the survivors from violence or their families, but also for the by the specialists who are working with such people, their recommendations and best international practices for working with them, and this will help you interact or work with the people who are in need of assistance. And there are also other potential services who can join a state initiative to this platform for integrated support, but also other initiatives, and they work on unfolding of those centers, on mobilization of international partners and other partners. The information that has been accumulated on the platform will be the basis for state policy and for state program for complex support and provision of services to the survivors of war. And I would like to express my gratitude to those having worked on the development of mechanisms for reacting to violence since the beginning of the war. And during this presentation, you can see the representatives of the key state bodies: Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Social Policy, Ministry of Healthcare, the Government Plenipotentiary on Gender Equality, who is the mother of our cooperation with the civil society and the international partners and experts. And we are grateful to UNFPA because our joint work pre-war has become a solid basis for integrated unfolding of assistance centers in different locations for provision of assistance to anyone who is in need of it. Thank you very much, Mrs. Stefanishyna, dear colleagues, dear friends, dear journalists. We will have to let Olga go for a urgent commitment at the President's office, but we will proceed with our presentation and press briefing. And the floor goes to Kateryna Levchenko, Government Plenipotentiary on Human Rights. Thank you. I'm going to say a couple of words on the importance of this platform. And in order for us to have a stable cooperation between the state institutions involved in assisting the survivors, with the international organizations, with the civil society partners. This all is essential, and this interaction must evolve and find very practical and very simple instruments and mechanisms for the realization and achievement of certain goals. And the goals includes holistic provision of assistance to those who need it, and also ensuring accountability of the perpetrators, those having committed crimes against the citizens of Ukraine, and first and foremost Russian political establishments and Russian invaders. So this interaction is very important to us, and I would like to remind you that back in March last year, the government of Ukraine and the UN system has signed a framework cooperation program on countering sexual violence in conflicts, and Olga Stefanishyna was the signatory from the government, and Premila Potsen, the special representative of the UN system on preventing sexual violence in conflict zones, was the signatory from the UN side. And in order for all the stakeholders, both national and international, to be involved, an intergovernmental working group was created. It works on countering to human trafficking for sexual exploitation, ensuring holistic and comprehensive assistance, ensuring liability and legal assistance, ensuring the building of capacity of the defense sector of Ukraine to meet the challenges related to sexual violence in conflict, and compensation and reparations. And I'm very grateful to all the participants of this group, because it's expanding, and more organizations working in various segments related to the provision of assistance to the survivors. So the assistance builds up, and for us as a country countering Russian aggression, the assistance of international partners and cooperation at the international level is essential, because we're worried that the national mechanisms for holding the perpetrators liable must be complemented also by the international mechanisms. And much has been said about this. And last week, Ukraine joined the Global Alliance on countering sexual violence in conflicts and provision assistance to the survivors, having been initiated by our partners, the government of Great Britain, and it has been also joined by 15 countries, including Ukraine, together with Colombia. And Ukraine and Colombia will be co-chairs of this alliance for 2023-2024. What is the objective of this alliance? The provision of assistance to the survivors and inclusion of those having suffered to deformation and implementation of policies in this sphere. This is a task posed to all the countries involved, and Ukraine will be also part of it. It's also related to lobbying and sanctions, lobbying of sanctions against those having perpetrated sexual violence during warfare. It's also about the formation of a network of experts developing unified approaches based on best practices in various countries when we're talking about the awareness raising and capacity building of experts and working with the survivors. So this is what it's all about. We will continue cooperation at both the national and international level, and the platform is in particular a communication and coordination instrument, facilitating us to better understand what has been done, what is being done, what the problems are, and what should be our focus of effort. Thank you. Thank you, Kateryna. Kateryna Levchenko, government plenipotentiary for the progress in countering violence, especially sexual violence and war crimes. And our next speaker, Mustafa Elkanzi, Senior Coordinator, Deputy Head of UNFPA in Ukraine. He will tell us about the impact of war on the work of international organizations, cooperation with the government, and challenges in the work with the survivors and further assistance. Dear colleagues, should you need simultaneous interpretation, please take the receivers.
I am privileged to be addressing you in this auspicious occasion, the launching of the Survivors Relief Platform, which is, in simple terms, is a place where survivors of all kind of violence, including gender-based violence and sexual violence, can have access to information about support and services. We have seen it often and again as UNFPA from our experience around the world, particularly in humanitarian emergencies, that survivors of gender-based violence and sexual violence are unaware of where to find information on support services that exist for their help. And also they are not often in the state of mind to seek proactively such services for many good reasons, including embarrassment, shame, depression, anxiety, and many others. And hence they are unable to take a step forward to renew their lives. That's why we are at UNFPA and the UN system at large. We are very keen on any initiative that provide easy access to survivors of gender-based violence and sexual violence to information and to support services to help them renew their lives, such as this platform we're launching today. And we are very privileged actually to be working alongside with the government that puts services to survivors of sexual violence and gender-based violence on top of their agenda. We are very grateful for our fruitful cooperation with the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration, Olga Stefanishyna, the Commissioner on Gender Equality, the Ministry of Social Policy, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Interior, to help put this endeavor in shape to provide these services. The platform that we are launching today actually complements other initiatives that we cooperated on, such as Aurora, breaking the cycle, no trivia, just to mention a few, and the survivors relief centers that today exist in 5 cities, as we have heard from the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, that have provided services to more than 10,000 people. And we are working on expanding this network of survivors relief centers here in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine to make sure that survivors of gender-based violence and sexual violence and people at risk of gender-based violence have access to this kind of services. And we are also working to make sure these centers are linked to government institutions for appropriate services. So it's a work in progress. And here I would like to appreciate the support of our donors and to help us make this happen. I will perhaps hand over the mic to the next speaker here, but I just wanted to again renew our commitment at UNFPA and UN at large for this endeavor and cause of action. I thank you.
Дякуємо. Зараз
Thank you. We will have another presentation on the work of social services and the referral mechanism and the importance of the assistance at grassroots. Ulyana Tokareva, Deputy Minister of Social Policy of Ukraine, will be our next speaker. Thank you. Hello. It's very important for us that assistance services for the survivors in Ukraine are being expanded. On behalf of the Ministry of Social Policy, we conduct certain steps in order to strengthen all kinds of support to the survivors from different types of violence, and this is related both to the legislative sphere and social services in particular. In 2022, in spite of a very complicated situation in the country, we have updated the National Action Plan, Women, Peace and Security, and it included an important norm that ensured the protection from sexual violence, both in the conditions of military conflict and in the time of absence of conflict. Also state a strategy for ensuring equal rights of women and men was approved, and one of the strategic objectives for men and women is to be free from violence related to warfare, and they should have equal assistance to justice, and they should contribute to peace and restoration. It's a set of specific steps that practically would allow us to ensure the access to services for all the survivors. And it would be important to introduce, and we did it, the amendments to our services to the survivors of gender violence, home violence, and in particular we have included mandate to amalgamated communities providing those services, that these specialized services can work with the survivors of military conflicts victims and for IDPs, and can provide more services, and those services can be provided in emergency situations. What is going on? All the experts must provide a high quality assistance, and therefore we are training them, and all the experts working in the communities must have respective skills. And the state budget for 2023 has included 175 million hryvnias for the creation of support services. And for sure, we are not alone in this. We are supported by our partners, helping us to conduct training and create such services. And also, we are implementing e-management in order to maximally facilitate the work of experts working directly with the survivors and allow more time for practical social work. Unfortunately, in 2022, we lost some specialized services, but due to the subvention that had been allocated before, some of the services were created. So if we're talking about specialized services, these are field mobile teams for psychological and other types of assistance to the victims, and shelters as well, ensuring the 3-month stay. And due to the amendments to the legislation that we have adopted, if the survivor has lost their place of residence, they are entitled to stay in the shelter for a longer period. These are also daycare crisis centers for social and psychological support, for consultations, and also specialized primary social and psychological consulting services. Due to the fact that we created this in 2021, now we have them. Do the survivors apply for help? Yes, they do. Not all the communities can provide this assistance because some of them were occupied or their services have been shelled. However, in 2022, over 30,000 of survivors have been able to receive assistance, and a segment of this population was supported long term. It's a major social assistance from the experts of those social services. And I wanted to also draw a parallel with the platform that is being launched today. So the work of support centers is quite essential because it enables all those applying for psychological and social support to find this specialized assistance for the survivors of home violence and gender-based violence. And when we work with such a person, we can immediately see how many services and instruments can be involved in the work with such a family. It's not just the service for the protection of children and free legal assistance. It's a wider circle of stakeholders, for example, healthcare institutions or civil society organizations providing additional assistance. This can include also law enforcement authorities. So a wide circle, in essence, of experts who are involved in supporting survivors. And it's very important that those experts have something to rely upon and to additionally be supported. So this platform can be such a support in spite of availability of many hotlines with information and consultations for the survivors. Advisory and informational services must be expanded. In particular, at the end of last year, we, together with our partners, created a chatbot for advising to the human trafficking survivors, and our partners, Ministry of in Syria also have such instruments, but we should expand those types of services because there is a demand and information should be provided. Therefore, we hope very much that this platform will be a resource both for the survivors and experts working with them. And on our side, we having the biggest scope of instruments will contribute to this platform. Thank you. Thank you very much. Regarding the law enforcement authorities and documenting the atrocities and conducting criminal cases and work on preventing re-traumatization will be covered by Kateryna Pavlichenko, Deputy Minister of Interior of Ukraine. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I don't have a presentation, but I would like to very briefly focus your attention on the work of law enforcement authorities on documenting the crimes committed by Russia on the territory of Ukraine and assistance to the survivors. First of all, I would like to say that after the full-scale war started, all the workers of the Ministry of Interior are involved in countering the enemy, and they are implementing not their inherent functions, let's say. For example, evacuation of the civilians from the dangerous areas and detecting the collaborants and also military actions together with the military servicemen and documenting war crimes. Today, according to the Prosecutor's General Office, over 80,000 proceedings have been initiated on the atrocities committed by the Russian Federation on the territory of Ukraine, but I would like to stress that 95% of those documented crimes have been documented by the national police, and over 67 cases have been launched, and this includes destroying cultural heritage, civilian infrastructure, shooting of green corridors, and also torture, murder, deportation. Today, on the territories of the former occupied regions in Sumy, Chernihiv, Kyiv, Kherson, and Mykolaiv regions, over 50 places of illegal detention have been discovered where Russians tortured Ukrainian citizens. Most of them are in Kharkiv and Kherson region. And the national police has discovered 27 filtration camps and imprisonment places on the temporarily occupied territories, and 7 filtration camps and imprisonment institutions are now on the territory of the Russian Federation. Today we have already mentioned that this type of crime as sexual violence against civilians, and they are latent and people are not always ready to disclose, but nevertheless, as of the start of this war, the national police created special groups of policemen working on documenting and discovering sexual crimes at the time of warfare. And due to their work, we managed to document such cases. We are aware that this is just a tip of the iceberg, and we will learn about all the facts later, but this work is ongoing, and the investigators are collecting evidence base for documenting those crimes and submitting them for international trials. Besides, I would like to stress that such platforms as the one being presented today are very useful for our citizens and for the activities of all the ministries and institutions, providing comprehensive support to the survivors. And I'm convinced that such a platform will be useful for all the citizens and will coordinate the efforts of all the institutions involved in provision of assistance to the survivors of military crimes. Thank you very much. Regarding the challenges to the military conditions and the medical system, so the floor is given to Iryna Mykychak, Deputy Minister of Healthcare of Ukraine. Thank you very much. We are here to provide high quality and user-friendly healthcare at all times, but especially at the time of war, which is a genocide of the Ukrainian people. And the medical workers work hand in hand. At the front line, we have adapted the system in such a way that every citizen can receive assistance whenever and wherever they need it the most. And of course, we receive applications from the survivors of violence and also from sexual violence. And reformatting the work of our medical sphere, we focused on the primary medical care and emergency medical care, because these are our teams who must be primarily involved with the citizens, and it's very important to gain trust and ensure the feeling of safety among the people applying for assistance. Therefore, we conduct a lot of trainings for our medical workers to build up their competence in terms of documenting crimes, because we are aware that when people apply with a certain problem, they have the symptoms of torture and so on and so forth. And then after the occupation, if there has been certain if certain period has passed, obvious evidence can be not there anymore. So we are helping our law enforcement colleagues to provide evidence, and of course medical assistance is very important, and psychological assistance to the survivors is essential. And our efficiency is not possible without coordination with the other services and agencies. Ulyana mentioned that we are cooperating in one chain with the social workers, and we try to ensure smooth coordination, informal cooperation when social workers, investigative bodies, police, prosecutor's office, and medical workers are cooperating hand in hand in the occupied territories. And we have a lot of applications, and building up the competence of our primary healthcare in terms of psychological support. We're also working on building up the capacities and skills of specialized medical institutions, providing assistance after torture, and the forensic component and the forensic psychological expertise is very important. So all our medical domain is involved in assisting the survivors of violence. And to mention the list, so there are various forms of violence, and depriving of medical assistance, deprivation of medical assistance, it's a crime against humanity. So we try to evacuate people and ensure the continuation of their treatment, especially in case of chronic diseases and severe diseases. We're using mobile teams and emergency medical services that are working on occupied territories, providing primary consultations, working as primary healthcare institutions, because it's not always that medical workers are present in the occupied territories. And so primary segment and interagency coordination are essential, and we're also grateful to the civil society, charity funds
маючи від
who have the expertise and the stamina and support medical workers in emotional and emotional field, and provide resources to ensure specialized medical assistance to the people in need. So we are working together on the survivors, both men and women and elderly people. It's very important that we gain trust, and it's important that we take it up together with the partners and other agencies to restore the person's normal life and our state after our victory. Thank you. Thank you, dear speakers, colleagues. We have a bit of time for questions. Should you have any questions, please let me know. Just one small aspect. The question should be related to the topic of this conference. If you have any other questions, you can approach our speakers after the Q&A is finished, if they have time, after the press briefing. So I would like to ask our guests and press representatives to introduce yourself first and to tell us what speaker you are asking the question to. Gnonenko, I represent 1+1 TV channel. I have a question of practical nature. What is the practical approach to the use of this platform? So how do I get access to consultations or police investigative services? Will it be a web page, or will it be integrated to the DIA platform? Will it be a mobile app? I think that it's a question to Olga. I'm not sure that I will be the right person to answer that. I think Kateryna and me can also answer this question. This platform is an informational resource where you can find accumulated information on the services available, and the contact points where the person can refer to receive assistance. We are aware that this platform will be dynamic, and of course, within a certain period of time, we will develop it and adapt to the needs for interactive work like the one that you are referring to. Yes, indeed, this platform is an informational one, accumulating all the services to be provided by state organizations and civil society. However, I would like to say that, in fact, there are a lot of services available or being launched, so the platform will unite them. And what we're presenting today is a good start, and it will be complemented. So regarding the involvement of the police, of course, the best way is to call 102, but I would like to also stress that the Ministry of Interior has also elaborated other mechanisms for application to the national police. In the case where there is home violence and the person cannot inform on what they are subjected to, there are apps that can help to call the police. We have developed those apps together with our partners UNFPA and presented them. So I think that all those products will be presented on this platform. Of course, we should add that it's not just for the survivors, but also for the experts from different spheres who can gain access to additional information, because we're all learning here. Thank you for your answers. Any other questions? Hello, my name is Andriy Kochmuradov, Civic Union. The title of the union is the 20th of December. I would like to ask a question to the representative of the Ministry of Healthcare, Iryna. As you mentioned, it's good to counter stigmatization, etc. But how does it work in practice? For example, a person needs certain medical attention. So at this stage, this person would need to go to a family doctor who refers this person to a specialist. And at present, this person is now different from other patients. So using this platform, if the person applies for medical assistance, will it look somehow different, or should they anyway come to the doctor and say that they are a victim, haven't suffered in conflict? So what is the practice of provision of services to such people, and how will it be different from all the other patients? In fact, the platform cannot provide medical services. It's an informational resource. It's the platform's main function to ensure interagency information aggregation. And people having suffered from torture or having medical problems should apply to a medical worker. And we are aware that medical workers are not ideal and aware of all the aspects. So a lot of trainings and capacity building activities are conducted in terms of how to communicate and overcoming barriers. We need to train medical workers how to communicate, how to win trust, and provide assistance. And in communication, you should provide psychological support and diagnose and refer the person to the specialist who can provide assistance in the sphere where the symptoms are the most expressed. So the medical worker is not a psychologist. They should refer to the expert who can provide specialized assistance. But should there have been traumas, assistance must be provided. There is no possibility to allocate a special, room for the survivors of violence. The most important part is to provide high quality, professional, and free assistance. May I comment? I know that you would like to. comment, but we have 1 minute before the end of the event. Let's take a question. If I may add, in July last year, the government signed a memorandum on cooperation with two well-known organizations, the Global Fund for the Provision of Assistance to the Survivors and the Fund of Denis Mukwege. And the Fund of Denis Mukwege focuses on the creation of specialized centers of excellence. There will be two, one in Kiev and one in Lviv. We are aware that this does not cover all the needs of the survivors, but these are centers accumulating experience and information and also providing assistance to the applicants and also organizing trainings of medical workers based on these best practices. And the Mukwege Fund is the organization working with the civil society organizations and the principles for cooperation of those having suffered from violence is very important in the representatives of the state together with the Mukwege Fund are implementing this important policy aspect. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. We have to round up. We have to finalize our Q&A session. So if you have any questions to the speakers, please approach them directly. And should anyone have a question on the functioning of the platform, Anna Maria Chaikovska, she's over here. She can explain all the details on how the platform functions and how it will look like when it's improved. So, and now we are working on it and what the platform can provide to the civil society organizations and our agencies. Thank you very much. Thank you, dear speakers, for their contribution and for finding the time to present this resource. Thank you and have a lovely day. Goodbye.